Good day, everyone. I am Kiana Nicole E. Desherto, and I'm going to continue the report regarding the cognitive behavior therapy. So, the topic outline for this discussion is about the cognitive behavior therapy applied to case of Stan and the summary and limitations of the cognitive behavior therapy. So cognitive behavior therapy applied to case of Stan. So this topic is about the session regarding the case of Stan and how it applied the cognitive behavior therapy. So from the initial session, the therapist asked Stan to identify his problems and formulate the specific goals and help him reconceptualize his problems in a way that increase his chances of finding solutions. The therapist follows a clear structure for every session in this case. So the basic procedural sequence includes the following. First is preparing him by providing a cognitive rationale for treatment and demystifying treatment. Second is encouraging him to monitor the thoughts that accompany his distress. Third is implementing behavioral and cognitive techniques. Fourth is assisting him in identifying and examining some basic beliefs and ideas. And fifth is teaching him ways to examine his beliefs and assumptions by testing them in the real world. And sixth is teaching him basic coping skills that will enable him to avoid relapsing into old patterns. So, as part of the structure of the therapy session, the therapist asks stand for the following: a brief review of the week, elicit feedback from the previous session, review homework assignments, collaboratively create an agenda for this session, discuss topics on the agenda, and set new homework for the week. The therapist encouraged Stan to perform personal experiments and practice coping skills in his daily life. In this case, Stan would like to work on his fears or in his fear of women and would hope to feel far less intimidated by them. So this case discusses uh, how would Stan uh, surpasses his fear on women. So he reported that he feels threatened by most women, but especially by women who perceives as powerful. So in working with Stan's fear, the therapist proceeds with these four steps. First is educating him about his self-talk. Second is having him monitor and evaluate his faulty beliefs. Third is using the cognitive and behavioral interventions. And last is collaboratively designing homework with Stan and or collaboratively designing homework with Stan that will give him opportunities to practice new behavior in his daily life. So the first step is educating him about his self-talk. So here are some of his beliefs. I always have to be strong, tough, and perfect. I am not a man if I know any signs of weaknesses. If everyone didn't love me and approve of me, things would be catastrophic. If a woman rejected me, I really would be reduced to a nothing. If I fail, I am then a failure as a person. I am apologetic for my existence because I don't feel equal to others. So this first step is to educate him about the importance of examining his automatic thoughts, his self-talk, and the many shoulds, oughts, and musts he has accepted. So without questioning. So working with Stan as a collaborative partner in his therapy, the therapist guide him in discovering some basic thoughts that influence what he tells himself and how he feels and acts. So the second step is having him monitor and evaluate his faulty beliefs. So the therapist, uh, you're not your father. I wonder why you continue telling yourself that you're just like him. Where is the evidence that your parents were right in their assessments of you? What is the evidence they were not right in their assessments of you? You say you're such a failure and that you feel inferior. Do you present activity support this? If you were not so hard on yourself, how might your life be different? So this second step is the therapist assistant in monitoring and evaluating the ways in which he keeps telling himself these self-defeating ideas. He was assisted in clarifying specific problems and learning how to critically evaluate his thinking. The third steps on working with Stan's fears is use cognitive and behavioral intervention. So once Stan more fully understand the nature of his cognitive distortions and his self-defeating beliefs, I draw or the therapist draw on a variety of cognition and behavioral techniques to help Stan learn to identify, evaluate, and respond to his beliefs. So the therapist heavily rely on cognitive techniques such as the Socratic questioning guided discovery and the cognitive restructuring to assist Stan in examining the evidence that seems to support or contradict his core beliefs. So the therapist who works with Stan, uh, he will view his will to become a personal scientist by checking out the validity of many of the conclusions and basic assumptions that contribute to his personal difficulties. So by the use of guided discovery, Stan learns to evaluate the validity and the functionality of his beliefs and conclusions. Stan could also profit from cognitive restructuring, which would entail observing his own behavior in various situations. For example, during the week, he can take a particular situation that is problematic for him and pay attention to his automatic thoughts and internal dialogue. So, what is he telling himself as he approaches a difficult situation? So, as he learns to attend to his thoughts and behaviors, he may begin to see that what he tells himself has a much impact as others' statements about him. He also sees the connections between his thinking and his behavioral problems. With this awareness, he is in an ideal place to begin to learn a new, more functional internal dialogue. So the last one, or the fourth steps, is collaboratively designing homework with Stan. So the therapists in here work collaboratively with Stan in creating specific homework assignment to help him deal with fears. It is expected that Stan will learn new coping skills, which he can practice first in session and then in daily life situation. It is not enough for him to merely say new things to himself. Stan needs to apply his new cognitive and behavioral coping skills in various daily situations. So at one point, for instance, I asked or the therapist asked Stan to explore his fears of powerful women and his reasons for continuing to tell himself they expect me to be strong and perfect. If I'm not careful, they'll dominate me. So his homework in here includes approaching a woman for a date. So if he succeeds in getting the date, he can think about his catastrophic expectations of what might happen. What would be so terrible if she did not like him or if she refused the date? Stan tells himself over and over that he must be approved of, and if any woman rebuffs him, the consequences are more than he can bear. So with practice, he learns to label distortions and is able to automatically identify his negative thoughts and monitor his cognitive patterns. So through variety of cognitive and behavioral strategies, he is able to acquire new information, change his basic beliefs, and implement new and more effective behavior. So, the summary and evaluation of the cognitive behavior therapy. In the summary, rational emotive behavior therapy, or the REBT, has evolved into a comprehensive and integrative approach that emphasizes thinking, assessing, deciding, and doing, and compassion. This approach is based on the premise of the interconnectedness of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Therapy can begin with clients' problematic behaviors and emotions, and clients can learn to dispute the thoughts that directly create them, to block any self-defeating beliefs that are reinforced by a process of self-indoctrination. REBT therapists employ active and directive techniques such as teaching, suggestion, persuasion, and homework assignments, and they encourage clients to substitute irrational belief system for an irrational one. Therapists demonstrate how and why dysfunctional beliefs lead to negative emotional and behavior results. They teach clients how to dispute self-defeating beliefs and behaviors that might occur in the future. REBT emphasizes the benefit of taking action, doing something about the insight one gains in therapy. Change comes about mainly by practicing new behaviors that replace old and ineffective ones. Unconditional self acceptance, unconditional other acceptance, and unconditional acceptance are strongly encouraged. Rational emotive behavior therapies are typically electric in selecting therapeutic strategies. They have the latitude to develop their own personal style and to exercise creativity. They are not bound by fixed techniques for particular problems. Cognitive therapy is also practiced from an integrative stance, using many methods to help clients learn to identify links between thoughts, emotions, behavior, physiology, and situations. The working alliance is given special importance in cognitive therapy as a way of forming a collaborative partnership. In cognitive therapy, it is presumed that clients are helped by the skillful use of a range of cognitive and behavioral interventions and by the therapist engaging clients' willingness to perform homework assignments between sessions. Some defining characteristics of cognitive therapy are that the client is active and works as a partner with the therapist. The therapist is active and directive. The therapy is structured and psychoeducational. An agenda provides focus for each session, and therapy is time limited. The working alliance is given special importance in cognitive therapy as a way of forming a collaborative partnership. Although rapport is in the client-therapist relationship is viewed as helpful by Beck, it is not considered sufficient for therapy success. In cognitive therapy, it is presumed that clients are helped by the skillful use of a range of cognitive and behavioral interventions and by the therapist engaging clients' willingness to perform homework assignments between sessions. Therapists are expected to be able to conceptualize client problems in ways that link personal client experiences to the evidence-based treatments that are most likely to be successful. All of the cognitive behavioral approaches stress the importance of links between cognitive processes, emotions, and behavior. It is assumed that how people feel and what they actually do is largely influenced by their subjective assessment and interpretation of situations. Because this appraisal of life situations is influenced by beliefs, attitudes, assumptions, and integral dialogue, such as cognitions, become a major focus of therapy. So, the contributions of the cognitive behavioral approaches. Most of the techniques discussed in this book can be considered cognitive in a general sense because they have the aim of changing clients' subjective views of themselves and the world. The cognitive behavioral approach have developed systematic and sophisticated forms of psychotherapy that focus on testing assumptions and beliefs and teaching clients the coping skills needed to deal with their problems. A basic principle of CBT is emotional and behavioral changes can be achieved by changing cognitions. Just a cognitive change can be altered by actions and emotions. Ellis REBT and Beck's CT represents the most systematic applications of cognitive behavior therapy. Both REBT and CT are based on a whole range of cognitive behavioral techniques and follow a defined plan of action. They can often be relatively brief and structured treatments in keeping with the spirit of maximizing effectiveness and efficiency, cost effectiveness, and evidence based practice. The psychoeducational aspect of CBT and RABT is a clear strength in diverse clients' populations. The evidence basis support of CBT therapies often makes them the gold standard by which therapy effectiveness is judged. So Alice REBT. So one of the strengths of REBT is the focus on teaching clients ways to carry on their therapy without the direct intervention of a therapist. The emphasis of REBT puts on supplementary and psychoeducational approaches such as listening to tapes, reading self-help books, keeping a record of what they are doing and thinking, and carrying out homework assignments. In this way, clients can further the process of change in themselves without becoming excessively dependent on a therapist. So in Beck's cognitive therapy, Beck's key concepts share similarities with RABT but differ in being empirically rather than philosophically derived. The process by which therapy proceeds and the formulation and treatment for different disorders. Cognitive therapy has been applied to a wide range of clinical populations that Beck did not originally believe were appropriate for this model, including treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder, schizophrenia, delusional disorders, bipolar disorders, and various personality disorders. Beck demonstrated that structured therapy that is present-centered and problem-oriented can be very effective in treating depression and anxiety in a relatively short time. Today, empirically validated treatments for both anxiety and depression have revolutionized therapeutic practice. Beck developed specific cognitive procedures to help depressive clients evaluate their assumptions and beliefs and to create a new cognitive perspective that can lead to optimism and change behavior. In Donald Meichenbaum's cognitive behavior modification, Meichenbaum's work in self-instruction and stress inoculation training has been applied successful to a variety of clients' population and specific problems. Of special note is his contribution to understanding how stress is largely self-induced through inner dialogue. Meichenbaum's integration of the cognitive narrative perspective is a key strength of his therapy style. In his therapy style, he is able to combine elements of the postmodern interest in stories clients tell with assisting clients in changing their cognitions, feelings, and behaviors by drawing on a cognitive behavioral conceptual framework. A contribution of all the cognitive behavioral approaches is the emphasis on putting newly acquired insight into action. The cognitive behavioral approaches are based on an educational model that stresses a working alliance between therapists and clients. The model encourages self-help provide for continuous feedback from the clients on how well treatment strategies are working and provide a structure and direction to the therapy process that allows for evaluation of outcomes. Clients are active, informed, and responsible for the direction of the therapy because they are partners in the enterprise. So, the limitations and criticisms of cognitive behavioral approaches. So, some critics have charged that the cognitive behavioral approaches focus only limited attention to the role of emotions in treatment. These therapies were originally developed to help people already experiencing extreme emotional arousal, and this perception may be an artifact of that fact. When clients are severely depressed or highly anxious, it is beneficial to focus less directly on these emotions for C, and more on the balancing roles of beliefs and behavior. When CBT therapists work with clients who keep emotions at arm's length, they use imagery, role play, and emotional expressions to elicit emotion and bring it into therapy. Although CBT therapists may not talk about emotion as frequently as some other therapies, CBT is almost always dealing directly with emotion and its consequences. Some potential limitations of the various CBT approaches follows. So the Alice REBT questions the REBT assumptions that exploring the past is ineffective in helping clients change faulty thinking and behavior. From the therapist's perspective, exploring past childhood experiences can have a great deal of therapeutic power if the discussion is connected to present functioning. In fact, Albert Ellis would listen to past childhood experiences in the initial session or during early session. These stories can be valued as source of irrational beliefs still held by the clients in here and now. So another potential limitations involves the misuse of the therapist's power by imposing ideas of what constitutes rational thinking. Due to active and directive nature of this approach, it is particularly important for practitioners to avoid imposing their own philosophy of life in their clients. So in Beck's cognitive therapy has been criticized for focusing too much on the power of positive thinking, being too superficial and simplistic, denying the importance of the client's past, and being too technique oriented, failing to use the therapeutic relationship, working only on eliminating symptoms, but failing to explore the underlying causes of difficulties, ignoring the role of unconscious factors, and neglecting the role of feelings. Although the cognitive therapy is straightforward and looks simple rather than complex solution, this does not imply that the practice of cognitive therapy is simple. Cognitive therapists do not pursue positive thinking but rather thinking based on actual experiences. Cognitive therapists do not believe that conscious is difficult to access. With direct and guided questioning, clients can identify assumptions and beliefs that exist below awareness and also link these beliefs to behavioral patterns and emotional reactions. They also recognize that clients' current problems are often a product of earlier life experiences, and they may explore with clients the ways their past is presently influencing them. So the limitations and criticisms of Meichenbaum's cognitive behavioral modification is Meichenbaum's is very charismatic in his level of caring and his workshop presentations. Much of the success of his approach may be based on his level of caring and his creativity in implementing CBT interventions. Practitioners without his wit, energy, personal flair, and direct therapeutic style may not get the same result even though they follow his treatment protocol. This emphasizes the importance for each therapist to develop his or her own unique therapeutic style. A potential limitations of any of the cognitive behavioral approach is the therapist's level of personal development, training, knowledge, skill, and perceptiveness, and ability to establish a therapeutic alliance. Although this is true of all therapeutic approaches, it is especially true for CBT practitioners because they tend to be active, highly structured, offer clients useful information, and teach life skills. Therapists teach their clients through what they model. Debbie Ellis encourages practitioners to strive to be mindful, to think about their thinking, and to do their best to practice what they preach. In doing so, they can be healthy models for their clients and others and experience greater authenticity and satisfaction in their own lives as well. So that will be all from my report. Thank you.